Gotcha.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another Monster Hunter World video. This is Thegameconomist, and today I'm going to be showing you a trick that will allow you to solo the most difficult monsters in the game by sharply increasing your defense and offense. That's right, today I'm going to be showing you guys one of the most meta, powerful skills in the game that does not get talked about enough at all, and that would be the FORTIFY skill. Most of you already know about FORTIFY. It can be found on several high-rank armor sets, including the Jaguar's Coil, the Zora Coil, the Death Stench Mail, and the Guild Cross Coil. But none of those armor pieces are very strong, so when I use FORTIFY, I'm adding it to my build with the Fortitude decoration. It's not a very rare decoration, so most of you probably already have it, or will soon if you just keep playing Tempered Investigations. One of the reasons why this skill is so powerful is because it only requires one small decoration slot in order to be added to your build. Now, if you've never heard of FORTIFY, let me explain what it does. FORTIFY gives you a 10% boost to attack and a 15% boost to defense every time you cart. So suppose you had 3 carts allowed in your solo investigation, or against an Arch-Tempered Elder Dragon, or against the Behemoth. That means you would be allowed to cart twice and get the 10% boost to attack and 15% boost to defense to stack twice. And you did that with only the cost of a single small decoration slot. Think about that. For those of you who are bad at math, getting 2 stacks of 10% of your attack for only one small decoration slot is the single largest boost to your output that is available in the game. And if you think about it, it's so cheap to build that you don't even have to give up other forms of damage boosting like peak performance, agitation, or heroics. Also, that's not even considering the huge boost to defense you'll receive as well. If you have decent augmented armor, it's not unrealistic to have your defense approaching 600 after 2 stacks of 15% bonus defense. Now, a boost to defense versus Pukey doesn't really mean anything, but if you were soloing Behemoth or the latest Arch-Tempered Elder Dragon, it's like the difference between being 2-shot and being 4-shot, and that's extremely significant for anyone. So you're probably wondering, why haven't more people caught on to the FORTIFY skill meta, and how do you utilize it as effectively as possible? Well, to start off, I think the reason more players aren't using FORTIFY is because newer players tend to think of multiplayer as being easier than soloing a monster, which I'm here to tell you is definitely not the case. In fact, soloing a tough monster like an Elder Dragon is almost always easier to do solo because monsters receive more health and more resistance to being stunned and knocked down when you're on a team. Even versus Behemoth, who already has the health of a multiplayer fight, multiplayer monster, just being on your own reduces the risk of your teammates ruining the match by dying. And if you're stacking FORTIFY twice in your fight, then your last life really does become so difficult for the monster to take that you have a much lowered risk of losing that fight. And this was a strategy that I was quick to discover when the Behemoth first launched for the consoles, which is why I was the first person to upload a Behemoth solo to YouTube. The other reason people overlook Fortitude is because it gets trash-talked by a lot of speedrunners, or it just never gets represented because you will typically not achieve your fastest speedrun by having to die twice first. All that time carting impacts your final time, but most players aren't speedrunners. Many of you watching this video probably have an Arch-Tempered Elder Dragon that you've never defeated, and so you aren't even close to worrying about shaving off a minute from your run. But if you're going to the speedrunners for your builds, then you're never really considering FORTIFY because you never see them using it. So now that I've answered why FORTIFY isn't talked about more despite being the single largest buff in the game, why don't I talk about how to utilize it the best? Now, as I mentioned at the start, you're really going to want to just add it to a build using the FORTIFY decoration, but the real question is, how should you die twice in the middle of your quest? The first is that you fight the monster naturally and then take greater and greater risks until you cart. This strategy is excellent for players who are using consumables that they're going to need to replenish in the middle of the fight. For example, think of players who are using Wyvern ammo. You can only bring 10 shots of it with you, so after you've run out, you can let the monster cart you on purpose, and then while you're back at camp, you just pick up more ammo, eat a max potion, and get back to work. However, there's a more efficient strategy for most players that I want to show you an example of. Here are the steps you'll want to follow. It starts by having 2 separate builds. Your first build will be you just naked, except you'll need a weapon with the decoration slot. Put your Fortitude decoration into that decoration slot and begin your quest without eating anything at the canteen, okay? So that's important. Once you've arrived, you need to run forward until the game allows you to place a barrel bomb. Put 2 mega barrel bombs down and blow them up while standing next to them. You're going to take a large chunk of damage from that. Then you'll need to craft and place 2 more mega barrel bombs down, and you'll blow them up a second time. This should be enough damage to cart you. Repeat this process a second time, and you'll have carted as efficiently as possible right at the start of the game twice, giving you that massive bonus to your attack and defense from proccing Fortify. And now you're ready to eat a meal at camp. I always go for the attack up large buff, and then finish my health bar with a max potion. Afterwards, you'll want to drink a demon drug and an armor skin, and at this point your character is pretty pumped up, but you have a last step. Go into your tent and swap to your actual combat build. Be sure the combat build also has the Fortify skill on it, or you won't keep the benefits that you had stacked earlier. Also, don't forget to refresh your max potions. And that's it. Now your character is super buffed and ready to take on the most difficult monster in the game, and it only added about 2 minutes to your match. Again, for speedrunners, that's actually terrible, but for your average player, those 2 minutes don't matter at all, and just being able to easily solo the monster without failing and having to start over and over again is what really matters. The only significant drawback about the efficient method of proccing Fortify at the start of the game is the cost of the 4 barrel bombs, as well as not having any more lives to spend, right? So like after you've procced it twice, obviously you can't die anymore. For newer players who can't afford 4 mega barrel bombs every time they want to use Fortify, and who also want to get the most out of all 3 of their lives, I recommend using Fortify the natural way. Just let the monster kill you, and know that you are becoming more powerful every time that you cart. In fact, if you're extremely new to the game, I would say you should even bring it with you into multiplayer, because if you're the guy who carts twice in all of your investigations, then it'll be much harder for you to cart that 3rd time, which would, of course, ruin the investigation for your team by causing your team to fail. Alright, and that's everything I have to say about Fortify, the single largest boost to your damage and defense in the game. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.